theyeshiva.net.
So in summation, the Nekuda that we learned last year was in the apparent contradiction in Torah's Hanister and Pnimi Torah and Kabbalah between the two structures of the spheres, which translate in two major differences that the Balatanya explored. Difference number one about the nature of Das, and difference number two about the nature of Midas. Difference number one was that in the first system, Das is under Chachma and Bina, and brings that down into Chesed and Gvura into the Midas. Where in the second system, Das is not Makabel from Chachma and Bina, Das is Makabel directly from Keser. That was number one. Number two is about the Midas. In system number one, the Midas are born, they emerge from Chachma and Bina and Das, because each sphera is below the one above it, which represents an evolution, a hishtalshalus, one to the other, where one emerges like a child that is born from the mother, who was born from her mother, who came from her mother and father, all the way back to the first parents, the first set of parents. Where in the second system, the Midas have a direct relationship with Keser. Not all the Midas are connected necessarily to Chachma and Bina, although some are under the column of Chachma and Bina, but actually the middle column is not under Chachma and Bina, and the middle column is the center, which combines both, which means the Midas are connected directly to Das, which is connected to Keser, which is a completely different system. The Balatanya said it's not a real contradiction. Not that it's not a real contradiction, that there's place for each, they're both true. Because for this you have to understand that there's two types of Das, Das Elyon and Das Tachta. Das Elyon, which means the higher Das, channels Keser and synthesizes Chachma and Bina and then Chesed and Gvura through Keser. The middle column synthesizes the right and the left column, it's in the middle. So Das, through Keser, synthesizes both Chachma and Bina, Chesed and Gvura, that's Das Elyon. Das Tachten is a lower level of Das, which receives from Chachma and Bina, and then channels it into Chesed and Gvura. That's number one. Number two, there are two types of Midas. Just like there's two types of Das, the two types of Das result in two different types of Midas. The first is Midas, that their main Mitzvahs, their primary entity, existence, is from Chachma and Bina. As he says, you see by a person, that the Midas are based on the Seichel, as he puts it. Seichel is that which gives birth to the Midas, to the experience of the Midas, which is why you can't compare a child's Midas to an adult's Midas. And as we explained at length on this level of understanding, which also has many layers of understanding, but on the most basic level of understanding, how every single midah, every single experience that a person has emotionally is always preceded by a certain seichel that gave birth to it. We discussed at length the comparison of parents to children and how to deal with children. So that's one type of midah. Then he goes Vahabeis, the second. You test Amid Beis, you test column 2, page 37, the first paragraph, close to the end of it. Vahabeis, the second. Ubchinis Hamidis are the Midas Shemekayden V'Sharshel Lamayla Min HaSeichel, that are rooted in a space that is beyond Seichel. Rak sheyoytzin v'nimshachen derech HaSeichel. Although it comes out through Seichel, it's not born from Seichel. The first one, he said, the Midas are born, Seichel Wamelidam. Seichel take credit for them. They're like the parents. They are the progenitors. They gave birth to these Midas. Meaning the Midas, their entire Metzias emerged from the parents. Like a child, the fetus is developed from the egg and the seed of Mami and Tati. And that's how they come out. But then there's Midas that are rooted in a place that's completely beyond the father and the mother, beyond Seichel. In other words, Seichel is not the father and the mother, even though they may come through them. As it says in Raya Mehemna, there's an expression in Raya Mehemna, which is a section of the Zohar, traditionally said by Raya Mehemna, the faithful shepherd, Moshe Rabbeinu. These are the words: the Ze'er Ampin, or Zah, Ba'atike, Achid, Vitalia, Chuli, K'moshe Kosov, Ba'ariches, B'makamach. Ze'er Ampin, which literally means the small face, is unified and dependent, connected to what we call Atik, which, just to translate the words without getting involved in the meaning of the words at this moment, Ze'er Ampin is the usual expression for the Midas, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod. In all of the writings of Nister, of Kabbalah and Chassidus are called Zah, Ze'er Ampin, which means literally a small face or a diminished face or a face in miniature. We'll see why that interesting name for Midas, a face in miniature. Ze'er Ampin means, Ampin in Aramaic is a face, like Panim, and Ze'er in Aramaic means small, diminished. So this Zah, which are the Midas, Ba'atika Achid Vitalia, is connected and unified. It's unified and connected. It's Talui. Achid means Echad, like Achdus, and Talia from the word Talui, connected, like hanging, so to speak. It's like a vine, an eshkol, a cluster of grapes that hangs from the vine. It's unified in the source, and it's Talia. It hangs, it's connected to it. In what Atik? Which Atik is again the expression for what we call Keser. That's the point, that Zah, which are Midas, are connected, not to Chachma and Binah. That's just maybe how it comes out. But they come from a place that's completely beyond Chachma and Binah, Atik, which is the expression of Keser. So just saying Keser itself, there are two dimensions in Kabbalah. One is called Atik, one is called Arich. Arich Ampin, actually, the long face, like in contrast to Ze'er Ampin. And Atik is the Pnimius of Keser, which means the higher level of Keser, which we will explain. And Midas are connected to Atik. That's what the word Atik. The word Atik is a term in Daniel. The prophet Daniel in the Sefer Daniel has an expression about Hashem. He calls him Atik Yoimin. Atik Yoimin. Atik means a few things. One is literal interpretation, the ancient one. Atik Yoimin. That's where the word Atik comes. It's an expression in Tanakh in Daniel. Atik Yoimin Yasiv Levushe Kislev Chiver Sa'areshe Kamar Noka, which means the Atik Yoimin, the ancient one of days, sits, his garment is like white snow and his hair white wool. This is an expression in Daniel. Once we established that there are two states of Das and there are two states of Midas, interesting expression. Both dimensions of Seder Shtalshalus will be able to be explained al nochin, which means in a proper way. It fits in. Now it could make sense. Kihine Haseder Habeis Shein Begimel Kaven, the second system that we discussed, where there are three columns, Hainu Binyan Midas, that addresses the Midas, Shein Mi'ikim Mitzius and Mechachmo Bina, that their primary existence doesn't come from Chachma and Bina, Ki Mibchinas HaKeser Shemeir Ben. Rather, those Midas come from Keser, which is above Chachma and Bina. Ukemaimer, that's what the Zohar says, the Zah Ba'atika Achid Vitalia Niskalel. This is the idea that Midas are rooted in Atik, which is the name for Keser. V'hainu Aidei B'chinas Das Elyanana. And this always comes out through the higher level of Das. Shehu Mibchinas HaKeser, which this Das again is not coming from Chachma and Bina, but coming from Keser. It's in the middle column right under Keser. Umechaber Umeyachid B'chinas Chachma Bina. On the contrary, this Das is what unifies and connects Chachma and Bina, which are on the right and on the left. The middle column integrates them. Shenimtze B'chinas HaDas Oimid Bin Chachma Bina V'tachas HaKeser. Which means that in this dimension, in this picture, Das stands between Chachma and Bina and under Keser. So for the picture, it would be easier not to make a segel, but just to make three columns literally. And on the top you have Keser, under Keser in the middle column you have Das, on the right you'll have Chachma, the left you have Bina, and Das is connecting them, is synthesizing them. This is Das Elyon, the higher Das, and which ultimately, from here will also come Midas, that come from Keser through Das, and that's why the Midas are not necessarily connected to Chachma and Bina. You have Tiferes, you have Yesod, which are in the middle, and Tiferes is Makabel straight from Das, which is Makabel from Keser, and that connects Chesed and Gvura, and then Yesod connects Netzach and Hoid. In other words, there's a different Das here and a different type of Midas. Mashenkin Seder Aleph, the first system in Kabbalah, that is addressing midas, that the Metzias comes only from Seichel. And it emerges through das tachten, the lower das, which extends in the midas, and brings to them the light of Chachma and Bina. This is the das tachten, which receives from Chachma and Bina, not from Keser. This is the hierarchy of the spheres, where one is below the other. You have Keser, under it Chachma, under it Bina, under it das, under it Keser, under it Gvura. And there is a clear system where das receives from Chachma and Bina, and das will give to the midas, and the midas clearly come from Chachma and Bina through das. It's a different type of midas and a different type of das. And this is how he creates the infrastructure or the context to be able to understand why there are two systems in Seder Ishtalshalos, which he began earlier, to understand the whole idea of B'chachma Yibana Bayis, B'svuna Yiskainan, Ubedas Yimalun Kol HaChadarim B'hoin Yokar, which was the explanation of him Yitin Ishes Kol Hoin Beisei Ba'ava Bois Yefuzuloi, Hoin Beisei referring to the Das, the Yokar, the Tainug of Torah, which Rivka accesses from the wellspring. This is all the beginning of the explanation in order to understand it. Understand all of this with more beer. This is, so to speak, more the facts. Like, okay, this is the setup. But to understand this with more beer, so you have to understand what's das. That helps. First, we have to understand what das tachten is. It'll always be easier. Some people can go from the higher to the lower, but most you start with the lower, then from the lower you can trace back to the higher. So first we'll explain das tacht, and from there we'll understand more das elyon, because it's ultimately also das. It's just a different level of das.
In these two systems, the das is different in both systems or the same?
Different. In the one system, it's das.
Das elyon twice and das tachten twice.
No. Each of the systems, you're addressing a different level of das, so the system becomes different.
But I'm saying here, you're discussing das now through two different systems.
Yeah.
So the das in one system is different than das in the other system.
So to speak, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We already explained that the main birth of the midas is always from Chachma and Bina. Every midah has a parent, just like every child has a parent.
Goes through das. What's das?
Okay, so you ask the question. You have a father and a mother. Where do you have?
Who's that?
The union of das. Yeah. Good.
What's the question?
Biologically, where is it when you have a father and a mother? Right. Right. So for a father and a mother to give birth, they also have to have das. That's his question. Your word, those are the questions. We just said that midas come from Chachma and Bina, so where does das come in? It's a third shutafir. We know biologically you have a father and you have a mother. The father makes his contribution and the mother makes her sacrifice. Right? B'diyuk. One gives a contribution and one does more than a contribution. And Chachma and Bina is called Abba and Ima, like he said earlier, the father and the mother. The father gives the nekuda, which is like the tippa, the nekuda of the child, which microscopically that tippa has everything in it. But without the mother, it's not going anywhere. Because it's so tiny, it's microscopic, even though in potential it has everything, it needs to be absorbed. There has to be a makabel that takes it in. It has to be fertilized. It has to become muksher, to become something. And then it's conceived, which means absorbed. There's a chibur, and it's fertilized and nurtured. And then an embryo, what we call a vlad, a tiny little fetus, can emerge with that synthesis of those two kaiches and slowly be developed from stage to stage to stage each week. More each day and each week and each hour really gets developed until after 9 months where you have Be'ezer Hashem, a full-fledged fetus that's ready to emerge into the real world. That process is a complicated process. It's a miraculous process. It defies the imagination. I'm speaking partially physically, biologically. You know that every single human being, every single creature living in the world went through that process. What it really is, right? But like everything in the physical world, it comes from a spiritual process, which is then reflected in the physical process. So you said that the midas emerged from Chachma and Bin. Every midah has an awareness that precedes it, that gave birth to it, that it emerges from it. And as we explained at length, what this means on a very practical level is that a person has to be able to take ownership over their emotions, take responsibility for it. Responsibility doesn't mean that I can fix it. Responsibility just means awareness of where it comes from. When we hear the word ownership and responsibility, I think it confused a few people because they're used to the word ownership and responsibility in terms of control. An master owns, right? I think somebody got confused there. Ownership, you didn't understand what I was saying. Ownership doesn't mean control. We're used to ownership. I own you. Ich bin dein balabas. I'll tell you where to walk and where to look and where to sit and how to think. You can't do that with your kids. I mean, you could try to do it when they're a young age, but it's ineffective because they're growing older. Unless you're going to destroy them. If you destroy them, then you could do it for the rest of their lives. Then it's fine. But for that, you could have just bought a robot in the store. You didn't have to make a child. You could buy a computer, call your computer your child. It doesn't have pchinen. Oh, we'll go to shul with you, whatever you want. Whatever you want, it will do. But to have a personality who's separate, you can't own in the sense, because owning is very short term. You need to influence it. You need to mold it. You need to inspire it. So when we say ownership here, it doesn't mean ownership that I can dictate it and control it. But ownership, or when I say I take responsibility doesn't mean I take responsibility that I can go like this and it's gone. But I take responsibility to become aware of what are the realities that are giving birth to these emotions. And that awareness, as we said, that awareness is critical. Because what that awareness allows is, it allows me to focus inward rather than outward. If I don't have that awareness, it's always about you. Du bist der Meshugana, du bist der Tzedreite. You're the impossible one. I'm, of course, righteous. When I have the awareness of that, what is the father and mother giving birth to it, then ultimately, I can one day make choices. I can one day make Havdalah. I can make choices. Emein das. Havdalah minayin, because I could see clearly what are the notions, what are the Yesodus, what are the fathers and the mothers. That is the tata from their kind. Who is the father and mother? And we explained at length, I think, a very important idea about the difference of judging children and educating children. You don't judge a child, crybaby, stupid crybaby. I once heard somebody do it. Don't be a stupid crybaby, a little kid. We never do that. It's senseless and ridiculous and cruel too. But we don't worship it either. We don't worship. A baby says, take me to the hospital, I'm dying. You don't right away call Hatzalah. You first check out the wound. The baby stubs a finger and says, take me to the hospital. You don't right away call the ambulance. But you don't scream at him, stop screaming in this house, stop crying. There's no room for crying in this house. You have to be an adult. You have to be, when you become 20, when you're 3 years old, it's a very painful experience because you never had time to process anything. So you don't judge, but you also don't worship. Rather, there's a curiosity there. But you have to appreciate the fact that it comes from somewhere. Everything comes from somewhere. That means there's no emotion in the world. There's no experience in the world that's not preceded by a father and a mother, by Chachma and Binah. The shaila is, where does das come?
How does an infant have emotions if it has no awareness? Godly.
Well, first of all, there's two types of emotions, as we'll see. And second of all, the question, what do you touch awareness? There's different levels of awareness, right? There's
emotions from pain, you don't need awareness. From physical pain.
You want to know if physical pain are called emotions. I don't think that's what he means by midas here. So v'tzorich lahavin b'chinas das mahu meshamish. What is the role of das? Hadas, these are critical words. Hadas b'chol mokim hu mebchina hapnimis. In every situation, wherever you're going to talk about das, it's always going to be mebchina hapnimis. Das is rooted in pnimius. Das comes from the world of pnimius. And this is in contrast to other things. Other things could be mebchina hachitzainis. Das is always identifying the pnimius. The word das equals pnimius. Whenever you, das b'chol mokim, whatever it's going to be, means das elyon, das tachten, das in one world, das in another world. Wherever you come to the world and word of das, you go into the world of pnimius. What's pshat the world of pnimius? Not the outer side of things, but the inner side of things. K'may kein kan. P'chinas hadas, das tachten, hamispashet b'toich hamidus, hu pnimius hamidus. The das in the midas means you're getting to the pnimius of the midas. When you say das comes into the midas, what does it mean? The words are really just pictures to explain an idea. The das hamispashet b'toich hamidus means getting to the pnimius of the midas. Meaning, sho tachlis habirur shalom, which means their ultimate clarity. To be able to see what is inside, to be able to see klar arois, the pnimius of every midah. Every single midah, every experience has an outer shell, and when you don't have das, that's all you see. The das allows you to see was is innovating. It's like the X-ray, but not just a physical X-ray, an X-ray that goes through and through to be able to see the mechanism and the energy, the chius that vibrates within the midah.
An MRI.
Huh? The MRI, yeah. MRI, the midas of the midas. Yeah, yeah.
MRI. Midas revealed inside.
Midas revealed inside. Very good. MRI. Gewaldig. Hu tachlis habirur. That's the only way you could do a birur. Birur here from the word barur, clarity, and birur from the word boirer, like in Hilchos Shabbos, to select, to sift out. Havdalah. You can't do boirer without pnimius. All birur comes through pnimius, because without pnimius, confusion is allowed. Confusion is warranted. What's the connection? Ki adas hainu iskashras. Because das, another way of defining das is iskashras. Iskashras means connection. The word kesher. Likshar, connect, bond. And like a knot, it's called a kesher. In Hilchos Shabbos, again, we have kosher, right? Knotting. Das is iskashras. We see this immediately the first time when the Torah introduces Adam and Chava. The first definition that's used for their relationship is V'ha Adam Yoda es Chav. Adam knew Chava. And what's the next words? And as a result of that, Chava conceives a child and she gives birth to Cain. She gives birth to Hevel. That means Yoda doesn't mean Adam knew her. He read about her in Wikipedia. Or he got a resume from the Shatchin about Chava. Hashem sent him a resume. Yoda here means he knew her intimately. Yoda is actually a euphemism for hiskashrus, for zivug, for the intimacy of Adam and Chava. But it's interesting, the Torah could have used other words, like it uses later on in Chumash. There's plenty of words that are used much more clear. We learned before Yitzchak Mitzachik, and later in Chumash, especially in Achrei Moshe and Kedoshim, you have all the expressions. Whether it's Gilui Ervo, it's Shchiva, whatever it is, the Torah uses clearly. But here the word is Yoda. Because it works on two levels. It's physical, but physical intimacy is always a result of spiritual intimacy. Real physical intimacy, let's talk about that. Is always about Yoda. It's knowing the other person. Knowing the other person, and that means the other person has to let you know them. If they don't let you know them, you don't know them. You know them only b'chitzainis, not b'pnimius. And you have to let yourself be known to them. In other words, it's extremely vulnerable. It's called real connection, intimate connection. Intimacy is into me see. So I have to let you see into me. the pnimius. Why is it called V'adam Yada Eschava? Because there's also two types of knowledge. There's a knowledge that I know you b'chitzaynius, and there's a knowledge which is Yediyah, which is Lashon Eskashrus. It's a different type, as he's going to explain. So when you say das brings Chachma and Binah into Midas, now he's not going to use the word das anymore. That's always very important, to be able to strip a concept from the term and discuss the idea. So what does he say? Another way of saying it is, what is das? Das is Hiskashrus Pchinas Chachma Binah B'Teicha Midas. When Chachma and Binah really connect to the Midas. When you can identify the connection of the father and mother to the child, when you could see the connection, that's what das is. Das is Hiskashrus. Without das, the child is running around and where's the tata? The kid in shul, they're always looking for the father, right? So that's what happens emotionally to us. We're children running around, we're looking for our father. We're looking for the mother. Who's the father of these emotions? Who's the mother of these emotions? They're very overwhelming. I can't deal with them. I'm afraid of my child because I don't know the father and the mother. When people see that a child has a father and a mother, even if the child is tantruming, everybody's relaxed. So, mama, there's a mother, it's fine. But the kid could be screaming and having a tantrum. Yeah, they say that there was somebody was in Costco, and there was a Yiddi with a vegala. With a vegala, he was going with a wagon, a lot of food, and there was a child also. The child was screaming and throwing it down like children know how to do in Dafka in Costco. And Mekaymis Kayla. And this father kept on saying, David, don't worry, we're coming home soon, we're going home, don't worry, another few minutes. And this is going on. So Chaverman goes over to him and said, I'm mamish blown away by you. The sensitivity to your son, David. I mean, how you speaking this whole time? He says, no, David is me. So when we see Satifa Maisa, so I just got it. So when we see this child tantruming, you see a father and a mother, everyone is good. On a plane, you go on a plane, kids, sometimes you have a family, Baruch Hashem, a minyan, and they decide at that moment to make a Simchas Torah and to put him during takeoff or during landing. The flight attendants are already after a meltdown, and the people are after a meltdown, and the shchenim are after a meltdown, v'chuli, v'chuli. But there's a father and a mother, and if it's a healthy, everyone is relaxed. What we can deal with is you see a child in the street tantruming, and there's no connection. There's nobody to take ownership. Ownership, not in the sense of dictatorship. Ownership is, this is mine. I'm good. It's fine. It's fine. That's what 3-year-olds do. That's what 2-year-olds do. In fact, that's what 40-year-olds also do. They're just scared to scream. That's why some people go to certain places, they could scream it out. But it's the same nakuda. It's really the same nakuda. What does this mean in a person's life? The same thing. The midas could be running around. Where's the father and mother? If there's a father and a mother, it's almost like you're tantruming. You're tantruming. Fine. That's fine. Nothing is going to happen. There's a father and a mother. There's a certain awareness that's in me, and it got triggered for whatever reason. And this may be a set of premises and ideas that I have, who knows how long. And when I see this or I hear this, there's an explosion. There's an absolute tantrum of emotion. But there's a father and a mother there. Automatically, I can create space for it. I can respect it. I can let it be. I don't have to amputate it. I don't have to deny it. The challenge is when there's no father and there's no mother, because we are afraid of ourselves. I'm afraid of my emotions. I'm frightened. I'm afraid of my child. So what do? What do parents who are afraid of their children do? They go upstairs. That they do. He locks himself up in his office. Why is he locking himself up in the office? I can't deal with him. In other words, what am I doing? I have to run away because it's too intense, it's too overwhelming. It's too ferocious. So therefore I run. Either I run physically or I run emotionally. And the child is left alone. It's the worst mistake somebody can do. And we do this to ourselves. You don't have to run. Be present. Zaya tata, zaya mama. So Chachma and Bina, in the midas, that's called hiskashrus, to connect the two. That's what the role of Das is. Machmas hiskashrus, b'chinas Chachma Bina b'toicha midas, mevarer umavdil ben tov v'ra. This is what allows somebody to make havdalah, to make choices between tov and ra, meaning shaloi tiyena hamidas muravas tov and ra. A person could now identify and take responsibility for the midah. I may not right away be able to get rid of every ra. I don't immediately mature and become an adult, but I could be aware and say, this is tov, this is ra. What the definition of tov and ra? Very important. Everyone says tov is good, ra is evil. I told you once, ra doesn't mean evil. Ra also means evil. The word ra in Lashon Kodesh means what? In Baba Kama you'll have in Perek HaKoines Koisel Ra'ua. Anybody remembers? Koisel Ra'ua. What is Koisel Ra'ua? A weak, a shaky wall, a broken wall. In Koheles you have Ra'isi Kol HaMaisim Shenasim Tachas HaShemesh HaKoil Hevel U'Ru'us Ruach. Reish Ayin Vav Sav, and Tanya it says that's the source of Ra, which means brokenness. Or unstable, brokenness, fragmented. Tov Ra means I can identify which midas are coming from a broken place and which midas are coming from a wholesome place. That's what Havdalah's Tov Ra in the beginning means. I can identify and say, this is coming from a brokenness in me. I may not be able to get rid of it, but if I could make that Havdalah, then these midas I don't have to worship, I don't have to embrace, I don't have to start owning them as my own, meaning that this is how I want to live. This is who I am, this is what I want to go with. I have it, fine. I have brokenness in me. Life breaks all people. Some people know how to live in broken places better than others. But if I can identify the Tov and the Ra, that's where Das comes in. For that, you need to be able to connect the Av and the Abe to the Midas. If you don't connect the two, you'll never be able to see it. The midas just become overwhelming and they take over. Because midas, by nature, will be mixed. There'll be a lot of different stuff going on, a lot of different emotions going on. And that's why from the midas there can be all types of Yinikus. Yinikus Achitzayim means the nurturing of the external forces. Kamay, an example would be Avram, Sheyatzim, and Yishmael. Here, names and ideas always connect because they're just parables and metaphors. Avram, the Gemara says, Yatzim and Yishmael. Yishmael comes from him. Again, not only talking about the physical Avram and the physical Yishmael, we're talking the concept. Avram is a midah, and Yishmael could be yoinik. He could get all of his nurture from Avram. You see this in Avodas Hashem, people who serve Hashem. A person loves, and he gets very excited like a fire, like a flam fire. We're talking about a serious person. He's in the middle of davening, and during davening, he meditates and contemplates on the truth of Hashem, and this creates a passion in him. And then after davening, he meets somebody that's not living up. Okay, but here it's more. Somebody who doesn't live up to his standard, and suddenly he gets angry, and the Balatanya says that anger is being fueled from the passion of davening. The Avos Hashem in davening, when he comes home, is translated into anger towards his wife or towards his children. The same passion. If he wouldn't have been passionate, he wouldn't have had this passion. What's happening here? There's taruvas, complete taruvas of Tov and Ra. Complete taruvas. It's like blind. It becomes blinding. Because the person is, there's no real awareness. There's no real connection.
Taruvas?
Mixed. It's all mixed. A cholent. A real cholent. And in a cholent you can identify the beans from the potatoes. Here you can't even do that. Because somehow when we eat cholent we have das. For cholent. So by davening, it was a gewaldige spilus, a shreit in Ivenik or outside. The same shrying He's screaming, "V'aftas Hashem Elokecha, Nakdishach v'Naritzach, Kesa Yitnu Lecha, Haboicha B'Amis," whatever he's screaming. And here he's not talking stam, a fake person who's just screaming because, for whatever reason, but it could be a serious midah, it could be even a deeper midah. But that same thing could be translated into kas, into anger. Because the impulse takes over. You have to say that already during davening there was a mixture of something alien here. What do we mean something alien here? Although it's felt extremely inspirational and wholesome and healing, if from this is translated later into anger on people, I'm upset, and that's what it translates in. It means already in the Ava, during Tefillin, the Hispilus, there was already a tarubus, there was already a mix of brokenness. It wasn't only Tov, it was also Ra. And that's why this very midah translates in a different way, and that's Avraham Yotzam Imenu Yishmael. Sometimes from Avraham, who emerges from Avraham? Can emerge Yishmael. What's the shaykhis? Yishmael was also chesed. Yishmael took his cue, he took his energy from Avraham Avinu.
Unikas Chitzanim is nurturing of the Kedusha. Why is that true that the Kedusha has some alien inside of it?
You'll see in a moment. If during Tefillah was only a lakos, what's pshat a lakos? He touches up that the Eir Hashem was revealed on his soul during davening. He says, I don't mean kas, any similar. Where do you come after Shubchinas Yinikas Achitzoinim? Kenoida she'en Yinikas Achitzoinim rak b'bchinas achirayim d'shem alakim she'unyam b'chinas ahasta. Yinikas Achitzoinim, the nurturing of the external forces, could only happen from what's called the achirayim, the hind part of the name alakim. In other words, there is a hesta, there is some type of blockage. The fact that there's Yinikas Achitzoinim means already that there's something in here that's allowing the parasite to take its nurture, to take its energy. I have to be responsible for that too, for the Yinikas Achitzoinim, meaning it's not fully protected. It's not fully, the immune system is compromised. It's not, of course, if you're dealing with Chitzanim that have Bechira, people can choose to do what they want. They can take any energy and do what they want. But he's saying here there's already some type of concealment in the source, and therefore the Chitzanim could be Yonim. And because of that, one has to have the Das, the connection of the Chachma and Binah in the Midas. And this allows for there to be able to be a Havdalah between Tov and Ra.
Skip something?
No.
I didn't see that connection. Why does it have to be a dot?
He says Das is the hiskashus, is the connection of Chachma and Binah in the Midas, meaning that one can identify the pnimius of the Midah, the core, the inside of the Midah, and when one can see that, one can always identify and distinguish between the Toiv of the Midah and the Ra of the Midah, where the two are mixed in. That's the word. And that always comes from Das, which is Pnimius, and that's why Chachma and Binah are not enough if there's no connection to it. One aspect of this is when we speak about Das, and we say Das is Pnimius, we'll see it in another angle, but it's all connected. Wherever you speak about Das, as he says on Yisoid, Das b'chol makom hu b'chinas hapnimis. Das is not yet a midah, right? Das is still Chachma Bina Das. It's part of Seichel. But it's after Chachma and Bina. The Das Tachten is after Chachma and Bina. There was a Chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek. His name was some say it was a grandson of the Balatanya. His name was Reb Michal Bliner. Reb Michal, they called him Reb Michal the Alter. Reb Michal the Old One. So there's a Yid who lived in Italy, in Australia, and in Italy his name was Rabbi Perlov, Reb Mordechai Perlov. He wrote a sefer called Lakutei Sipurim. He wrote stories that he heard as a bacher. He learned in Time Chetmimim in the city of Lubavitch by the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he writes there a story that he heard from Reb Michal Bliner, who was already an older chassid when he was a bacher from the Tzemach Tzedek, and he was teaching them about Das. So he told them a story to illustrate the inyan of Das. And Reb Michal Bliner said that in the olden days, in the Shtetlach, there were Yeshuvnikas. Yeshuvnikas were Jews who lived in little villages, not in larger towns or cities, and therefore they didn't have communities. They also didn't have access to teachers, but they were raising children, so they would hire a Malamed to move into them, and he would stay with them for a few months. And then he would go home a few times a year. How people lived, it was far from simple. Going for Pesach, going for Tishrei. The mother would raise the kids over there when they were little, and the Malamed would come home a few times a year, but he needed parnasa. So a few times a year he would come in and bring all the money he got from the Yeshuvnik to be able to support his family, and then he would go back to teach the kids of where they were farmers or they owned inns. They were called Yeshuvnikas, Yidden who lived in Yeshuv. They were usually very simple people because they themselves never had an education, and they hired these teachers who were more literate to educate their children. So Michal Bliner said, he told the story that there was once a Yeshuvnik, and he couldn't read. He couldn't read any language. He was an illiterate. Whatever he did for Parnasa, but he couldn't read. So his teacher, who would teach the children, had another job. He would read all the letters. Any letter that came in, he would, it's like today you hire your bookkeepers, your accountants, because they read things that you don't know what it means. The fine print. So he would read all of his letters. Vayiyayim says that Michal, a letter arrived. And the teacher takes the letter to read it to the Yeshuvnik. And he starts reading the letter. And he's reading it calmly and collectively, word for word, line by line, sentence by sentence. And in the middle of the letter, the Yeshuvnik, the Jew, faints. He faints. He cries out, he gives a geshrei, a scream, and he faints. What happened? In the letter it was reported that his father passed away. And the teacher was reading him the letter, and he heard it. It's his father. He felt for his father. He was close to his father. He cried out, and he fainted. So Michal said, I have a question. Who had more access to the information? Who had closer access, better access? The teacher or the Yeshuvnik? Of course the teacher. Who was the Klei Rishon here? The teacher. He's the one who read the letter. He could read. The other one was Klei Sheni. He got the information through the teacher. The teacher, next. And the Yeshuvnik went crazy. He fainted. Why? So he said, in Yiddish, he said, Toldos is sein Tata. Because it's his father. For the Malamed, it's not his father. A person passed away, okay? It's unfortunate. For the Yeshuvnik, it's my father. That made all the difference. So the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, said over the story when it was printed, Tovshin Chafhei, 1965, Yud Shvat. He said over the story that he got the sefer from Rabbi Perlov, he said over the whole story. And then he added, and he said, and when the Rebbe added this, he started to cry publicly at the Fabrengen, he started to cry. He said that there's two people, he was talking to Chassidim who are supposed to learn Chassidus. So he said there's two types of people who learn Chassidus. There's people who learn, but loy naga v'loy paga. That has absolutely no impact. Why? Because he's not learning about his father. He's learning about somebody else's father. He says there's somebody who learns and they're filled avinu shabashamayim asazayin tata. It's his. And then the impact is a different one. And that's how Reb Michal Bliner explained what Das is. Das is intellectual intimacy. What's intellectual intimacy? A person could read information. can have chachma, you can have binah, you can understand it perfectly. But there's no pnimius in it. Why is there no pnimius in it? Because there's no connection. There's no hiskashrus. Hiskashrus doesn't yet mean I got emotional. Hiskashrus means it's real. The idea is real. It's relevance. Relevance. Yeah, a person could learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. Their whole life they learn. No relevance. There's a wall, a mechitza shel barzel, between their information and their soul. There's like a partition. There's no oneness. There's no integration. There's no seamless synthesis between the person and the information. The person is like the Lashon Hatzana Mola Safra. He's basically a bookcase. The bookcase has a lot of information inside. The bookcase doesn't change. The bookcase, that's what it is, a bookcase, a computer. What do they say? Computers are masculine because they retain enormous amounts of data, yet they remain clueless. That's a computer. A computer that has more information, and Google is the größte Tal. Wie sagst du the Google that? Yeah. Up is a Google, yeah? That's what it is. So sometimes you have that in a person. The person has information, but the information and the I never clicked. And that's always connected to pnimius. It's not just a chisaron in behavior and morality. The pnimius is missing. Was heißt, when you get to the pnimius of something, it becomes relevant. If you deal with the chitzonius, it's not relevant necessarily. But das is the pnimius of it. And because you touch the pnimius, so you get it. It's like the click, the aha, the identification, the personalization. I don't only know it, I see it. It's vivid. It's real. Because it's real, it affects me. Because something that's real will affect me. Unless it's not really real. It's an idea. So you'll have a whole world where ideas are spoken and said and vertlach and shalashudas toidas. But you right away could feel if there's das or there's no das. Das means you stand by it. Das means there's a person behind the words. It's a mensch, ah? Yes, there's a person behind it. It's real. It's oizgearbet. It's worked through. There's an authenticity there. It's not just lip service, even intellectual lip service. Gechabt, gesagt. That's why he says das is always pnimius. Pnimius is not about quantity. It's about quality. It's how much there's connection. Your own pnimius and the pnimius of the idea. It goes together. The pnimius of the idea connects to your pnimius. Your pnimius connects to the pnimius of the idea. Where chitzonius connects to chitzonius. So that's what he was saying. The Melamed, it wasn't his father. It was a letter. He knew the letter better than the Yeshuvnik. He could show him the words. He could explain to him how it's written. He could be medayik. He knows everything. But there's absolutely no pnimius. In terms of analyzing the words and the svarit, he could do much better a job than the Melamed. Melamed can't even read it. He doesn't know what it says. He doesn't know what it says. But there's nothing pnimiistic about it, nothing real about it. So that's why the side of das after Chachma and Binner changes everything. Va'adam yodes chava. What's yoda? Not just he knew chava, he read her resume, chava is this, chava is that, chava is that, chava likes apples. What type of food does she like? Apples. The resume of the shidduch. Actually, the real thing, apples is not our shit. Sroigim. Chava likes a sroigim or wheat or grapes or figs. There's a shidduch. Eitzadas chita hoitz. Gemara and bracha stuff, ma'am. So Chava likes a sroigim. Chava likes wheat. Chava likes carbs. That's actually more accurate. And as we know, carbs is eitzadas, taiverad, b'yoyim ha'cholchem imenu, moist Thomas. I just realized. That's pshat with eitzadas. Every nutritionist tells it to you. Ask Dr. Michelle. B'yoyim ha'cholchem imenu, moist Thomas. Yenatag. Not taking away the day. First you'll get depressed, lethargic, heavy, loaded. A few days you'll be dead.
The donut.
Not only donuts, carbs, chita. You need sa'orim, Michael Behema.
So what happens when the guy that was davening so strong, and he goes home and he has kas, and there's another guy who davens strong and he goes home and he has the opposite of kas. So what happens with the two?
The first one was down. The second one, his davening had a lot of brokenness inside of it. He was using God as an opium for his insecurities. You understand? The second person actually embraced who he was, and he wasn't using God for an opium of his insecurities. So therefore, he doesn't have to let out the repressed energy during davening on his wife. You understood? Okay, because I didn't. It sounded good, but I didn't understand much what I said. But I think there's a truth to it. The first guy didn't deal with himself. God became an escape. Whenever God becomes an escape, it's going to be used for things that are ungodly. Because it's not a real relationship. I'm just trying to distract myself from the pain of myself. So I ran to God. You understand, the davening was an escape. It's better than doing other things, maybe. You can escape in other ways. It's better than some other escapes. But that itself could be taruvas toivera, because there's no das. Das is always the honesty of it. Das is the ability to look somebody in the eyes and remain present. Das is the ability to look at an idea in the eyes and remain present. Das is always full identification. There's no fragmentation. That's why it's the middle column. The middle column is always pnimius, merkaz, going to the center, the core. Right is extroverted. It's one extreme. Left is another extreme, which each have an important role. Das is pnimius. The middle represents here not the middle that it's not right and not left. It's a compromise. Das is not a compromise. Das is the pnimius of it. You're always looking for the core. As will be explained more, we're up to Daf Yutes, right? Amud Beis, Yutes column 2, page 37, the last paragraph. Ubazeh Yuvan Maisid Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. After starting to explain the two types of das alien and das tachten, the two types of midas, and in order to explain this, the Balatani says we first have to discuss what das is. First das tachten and then das alien. And he started to explain what das is. So he now goes in to explain, based on this, a whole sugya, a whole story in Gemara, the Masechta Avodah Zarah Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph. As usual, he quotes only a few words from the story, but because the story is dissected and analyzed so heavily now in this way, I want to learn with you the entire story so we'll be able to appreciate what the Balatanya is saying. So because the copies didn't arrive, I'm going to read it from here from the text of the Gemara, Avodah Zarah Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph. If you have it, fine, you could follow inside. If not, not. But it'll be posted on the source sheets of the yeshiva.net in the Shir, so you could see it later as well. Okay, I'm going to read the Gemara. Avodah Zarah Yud Ches Amud Aleph. Tonu Rabbanon. The rabbis taught. K'shechala Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. When Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma fell ill, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was one of the great Tanoim, the great sages of his day. And here we are dealing with the decades, the century after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. At that time, Rome ruled most of the world, including, of course, the Middle East and Eretz Yisrael, Judea. They have laid waste to Yerushalayim, decimated Yerushalayim and all of Judea, Yehuda, and the Beis Hamikdash, burnt it, and exiled or killed most of the Jews living there. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was one of the great Tanoim of the day. Mentioned in Pirkei Avos, the famous story when somebody wanted to ask him to move from his location to another place. And Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma fell ill. Holach Reb Chanina ben Tradian Levakre. Reb Chanina ben Tradian, who was a friend, a colleague, and a student of his, also one of the greatest Tanoim and sages of his day, Reb Chanina, the son of Tradian, went to visit Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, who was sick. Amaloi. Let's listen to this conversation. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma tells to Reb Chanina, he says, Chanina Ochi. Chanina, my brother. He calls him Chanina, their friend, their close. He's a friend, he's a student. Chanina Ochi. Iyatu Yedei, you don't know, Sha'umazu, this nation, referring to the Roman Empire. Min Hashamayim in Lichua. they gave her kingship from heaven. Heaven is the one that coronated Rome. Heaven is the one that decided, the Rabbi Shalom decided that Rome should rule. Shehachriva es Beisai. Look, Rome managed this ummah, this nation, destroyed his home, the Beis Hamikdash, the Sarfa es Echalai, and burned his chamber, his sanctuary. V'harga es Chassidov, and murdered his pious ones, his Chassidov, his pious ones, his great people. V'ibda es Tuvav, and destroyed his best, the best of the best. V'adayin hi kayemes, and it still exists. After doing all of this, Rome still manages to exist, obviously, min hashamayim im lichua. Somehow, to have such strength, to have such power, to be so ruthless and evil and barbaric and sadist, and do all of this, and yet it's still intact. Umazu kayemes. It won't be intact forever, but it's still intact. Obviously, it has some divine power that God wanted to allow Rome to exist. And here he gets to his point. V'ani shamati alech, and I hear rumors about you. Shata yoshev oisik b'Torah. You sit and you learn Torah, and not only that, umakil kehilas barabim. You gather communities together. Rabbi was not only learned in the privacy in a basement somewhere, in a machteres, in an underground. Makil kehilas barabim, he would gather children, students, people, kehilas, barabim, publicly, and he would teach. The Sefer munach l'cha b'chekecha. And even and the Sefer Torah, the Sefer, the book, stays with you, it lays in your bosom. And apparently what he means to say is, there's the story of the dreidel, right? The legend about the origin of the dreidel, that the children would learn, and then when the Greeks would come, they would suddenly, they were playing cards, they were playing dreidel, they were having a barbecue. Apparently he's saying, it's not like you could say, I was giving a lecture on mathematics, or I was giving a lecture on some topic in science or Roman politics, or some algorithm. It's obvious, it's apparent that you're teaching Torah, which was, of course, outlawed by the Roman emperor. So what is Beis Medrash telling him? How are you ignoring this? Min hashamayim im lichua, they have power. Unfortunately, they have a lot of power. And you are defying all of their edicts. This is what I hear about you. So Reb Chanina, listen to his response. Oh my Lord, Reb Chanina ben Shadin tells Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma 3 words. Min hashamayim yirachamu. From heaven, as we say in Yiddish, the Eberste vet Rachmanasam, and this is the source, the Eberste vet Rachmanasam. From heaven, they will have mercy. They will have compassion.
What was the time? I mean, he was having a from
He was telling Reb Chanina, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're endangering your life. You're endangering all the people's lives. You're ignoring what Rome is. You're ignoring its power. And it's not, we don't have to consider Rome. You see that min hashamayim im lichua, they were given power. How do you ignore this? At the stake of death. He's rebuking him for living and doing something very irresponsible. So Reb Chanina tells him, min hashamayim yirachim. Hashem will have compassion. Heaven will have compassion. Oh my Lord. Huh?
What's the alternative? You have to lose the slaves, no?
go undercover.
Learn yourself. Learn yourself undercover. He felt Makil Kilas Barabim is endangering his life and everybody's life, and it's not the right thing to do under these circumstances. Amaloi, Reb Chanina ben Tradian says to him, there are the 3 Avedas, the 3 sins, that if they tell you to do it, right, you're Harig Valyavar. There's something called Gzeres HaMalchus, a time of Gzeres HaMalchus. Rabbi Kislev apparently felt that he was not obligated to do this, and therefore he was just endangering his life. Amaloi, so Rabbi Kislev says, Ani oimel lecha dvarim shel tam, v'at oimel li min hashamayim yirachamu. Ich red medin normal. I'm telling you normal things. I'm telling you dvarim shel tam, things that make sense. I'm speaking to you logic. And all you're telling me is min hashamayim yirachamu. That's not a response. It's not an adequate response. He's not debating him. He's not counter-arguing. All he's saying is they're going to have rachmanas from heaven. What type of response to this? What type of response is this? I'm explaining to you what Rome did. Look what Hashem allowed them to do. They destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. Harges Chassidov, Ibdes Tuvav, Sarfa Sechaloi. You see what they did. For whatever reason, this is what the Hashgacha, this is what the Rabbi Shalom allowed them to do. However you explain it, or you don't have an explanation. So what are you telling me, Min Hashamayim Yirachamu? You're the exception. And he continues, he says, Tomani. I'll be surprised. based on who these people are, based on the tyranny of these Rishayim, if they don't take you and the Sefer Torah and burn them in fire. Oh my Lord, so the conversation now gets even more difficult to understand. Oh my Lord, so Chanina ben Tradian says, Rabbi, Mani l'chaya elam haba. And if this happens, what's my status? What's my status? Do I get chaya elam haba? Will I get the life in the world to come? If this, you're telling me I'm going to be killed with the Sefer Torah, we'll both be burnt, because I'm talking to you logic, you're telling me min hashamayim yirachim. So I want to know, okay, step 2. Mani l'chaya elam haba. Do I get elam haba? Omaloi, so Rabbi Yosef ben Kislev tells him, Klum maisa baliyatcha. Very interesting expression. Has there been a maisa that came to you? Meaning, can you tell me a story about yourself? Maisa as a story, as an action. The word maisa awake. Klum maisa baliyatcha. Is there a story about you that came to you? Some story that occurred in your life, that came into your hand, so to speak, that occurred in your life, that you could share with me? Now, he doesn't say what type of maisa. He says, I want a maisa. What type of maisa does he want? He's answering the question, am I going to get Eilam Haba? So he says, tell me a maisa about yourself. An incident, a story, something challenging perhaps. So he chooses the following story. Amalais, I'll tell you a story. Here's the story. Moyes shel Purim nischalfuli b'moyes shel tzedakah. I had two containers, 2 boxes of money. In one I had Moyes shel Purim. I had money for Purim, for me. You have Purim, a big Suda, with Yayin, with all the Matamim, with all the mitzvahs of Purim. This is after Bayis Sheni, so they're celebrating Purim already a few hundred years. One of the mitzvahs of Purim is, of course, Suda's Purim, Mishta, V'simcha, Chayiv, V'nish L'psum. So he had money put away for Purim. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian also had money put away for tzedakah, that he collected. If he was a gabbai tzedakah, he collected money, or he had money for poor people. This is 1 year, and what happened to me is, Moyes shall Purim, nischalfuli b'moyes shel tzedakah. By mistake, the money that I had for Purim, in my mind, it got mixed up. I thought it was money for tzedakah. So what did I do? V'chilaktem Mayim. I got confused, and I gave all that money away for poor people. What would you expect me to do now? Go to the money for tzedakah and reimburse myself. I didn't. V'chilaktem money. I gave it to poor people. There's a few interpretations how to learn what's pshat in the Ma'aser. Rashi brings 2, Tosfos brings 1, but it all revolves around this area. I took money that belonged to me, I gave it to the poor people, and I didn't reimburse myself. This is the Ma'aser. When Rabbi Yosef ben Kislev hears this, Amaloi im kain oibazoi, if so, michelkecha yechelki, or megarolcha yehegaroli. May your lot be my lot. May your fate be my fate. May your destiny be my destiny. If this is what happened, he says, now everything changes. This is a game changer. Now all I could say is, I wish I was in your place. I wish I had your chelik. I had your goyim. Amru, they say, lo yahayu yamim u'atim. Not many days passed. Achenifter Rabbi Yosef ben Kislev. As we said, Rabbi Yosef ben Kislev was ill. Rabbi Yosef passed away. This is a difficult part of the story. All the great men of Rome went to bury him. Apparently, it was a tremendous respect that they had to Rabbi Yosef ben Kislev. They eulogized him with a great eulogy. And on the way back from the funeral, they found Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian. Interesting, Chanina ben Tradian didn't go to the funeral. Or he went, but he couldn't deal with all the hespedim, maybe. Or he saw who was maspid, Kol Gedolei Raimi. He's like, okay, it's a pusher for Rabbi Yosef. Whatever the case is, stop my own order. They came back. They find Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian on the way back of the funeral. The Gedolei Raimi, who are very respectful of Rabbi Yosef ben Kislev, see Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian learning. Or Makel Keil Rabim, not just himself. He's gathering communities publicly. The Sefer Torah munach lei b'cheikei, and the Sefer Torah lay on his bosom, in his pocket, by his chest, by his heart. This is what they see. What happens? Heviyu, they take him. Ukrachu b'Sefer Torah. They wrap him up in the Sefer Torah. They surround it with the shoots of a vine. Zmoiris are branches, shoots of a vine tree, of a grape tree. And they ignite it on fire. Three things: the Sefer Torah and the shoots of the vine. They ignite. One thing, they ignite the shoots of the vine on fire. They bring svugen are called, I think, tufts of wool, sponges of wool, pieces of wool. V'sharim b'mayim, they soak them in water. V'nichum alibay, they place them on the heart of Rabbi ben Tadin. So his soul should not go out swiftly. They want to torture. Amra loy bita, his daughter sees this. His daughter says, Abba, erecha b'kach, how can I see you this way? Amar la, Reb Chanina tells, Ilmoli ani nisrafti levadi. If I was being burnt alone, hayad over kashali, it would have been excruciatingly difficult for me. Achshav shani nisra v'sefer Torah me. Now I'm being burnt with the Sefer Torah. Misha mavakish al boinu shel Sefer Torah yavakish al boini. The one who will exact and demand the shame to be paid back for the shame of the Sefer Torah, he will also demand my shame being destroyed. Amrullah Talmid of his students say, Rabbi Ma Torah, what do you see? Amalemi tells them, the famous response, Gvilin Nisrafin Va'oisius Parchas. The parchment, Gvil is the parchment. Gvilin, the parchments are being burnt, and the oisius, the letters, are soaring upward. Afato, they said, Rebbe, Psach Picha, open your mouth, let the fire go into you and consume you. Amalah, and he said, Mutav sheyetlena misha nosna v'ayechabel hu ba'atzma. Better that he who gave me my soul should take it away. I don't want to kill myself. Amaloi kal tsetunidi. The executioner says to Reb Chanina, Rebbe, he calls him Rebbe. Imani marbe b'shalheves v'noitel svugen shel tzema me'alibchat me've'ena l'chaya l'maba. If I increase the fire and I remove the tufts of wool, the sponges of wool soaked in water from your heart, will you help me? Will you bring me to the life of Olam Haba? This is the executioner. Amalei Reb Chanina says, hey, yes. He wasn't satisfied. No, a Roman execution. He shavali. He says, swear to me. Nishbala, he swore to him. Miyad Heber b'shalheves, he increased the fire. V'notel svugen shel tzema me'alibei, removed the wool from his heart. Yatsa nishmase b'meheira. The soul of Chine ben Tradian left very swiftly. He passed away. What happened next was Afhu, the executioner, Kafat, jumped. V'nofel l'toichayr, he jumped into the fire to join Reb Chanina ben Tradian. Yatsa Baskala, a voice comes out, V'amra, and says, Reb Chanina ben Tradian v'kal tsutanidi mizumonin ein l'chai elam haba. Chanina ben Tradian and the executioner are both prepared to go to the life of Olam Haba, to the life of the world to come. Bacha Rebbe, who heard this story, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, the editor of the Mishnah, who heard this story, started to cry, and he said, Yesh koinei lamai b'shah achas, v'yesh koinei lamai b'kama shah. Somebody who acquires his world in one moment, in shah achas, one moment, like this executioner, and there's somebody who acquires his world over many, many years. B'kama shanim, like Chanina ben Tradian. This is the mice. Now the Gemara goes off to tell another story about the daughter of Reb Chanina ben Tradian, who you all heard of. Her name was Bruria, who was the daughter of Chanina ben Tradian and married the Tana Reb Meir. And that's the continuation of the story about Bruria and Reb Meir. Now let's see the Mayim inside. You'll see he quotes Mamash just a few words from the story. If you don't learn the story in Gemara, it's hard to appreciate. After the whole conversation, he says, I wonder if they won't burn you with the Sefer Torah, and he answered him, they will have compassion from heaven. And you're telling me, you may be burned. Reb Chanina tells him, and he answered, etc. Atkan, the whole story in Avodah Zarah Daf Yud Ches. Ma'ula Olam Haba. It is extremely astounding and difficult to understand the question of Reb Chanina ben Shadyan, Ma'ani l'chaya Olam Haba. Will I come to Chaya Olam Haba? We say, Kol Yisrael yesh lam chelik l'Olam Haba. Every Jew has a chelik l'Olam Haba. Shneim avamach kolom tzadik. But here we're not talking about a regular person. We're talking about one of the greatest Tanoim, Reb Chanina ben Shadyan. And furthermore, Imhu Nomoisen Nafshe al Kiddush Hashem. Why is he dying? He's dying mamish with Mesidus Nefesh on Kiddush Hashem. He's sacrificing his life for the sanctification of Torah, of Hashem. Shoyamakil Kehilas Barabah. Reb Chanina ben Shadyan didn't do this al stami going to kill himself. He was the one who was dedicated to preserve Torah. He wanted to preserve. The Romans outlawed the practice of Judaism and the study of Judaism. The Gemara tells different stories about Rome. Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, they found also teaching, and they pierced him, they killed him. Reb Chanina ben Shadyan is one of the Asar Arugei Malchus. When we read about the 10 people who were killed by Rome, the 10 Gedolei Yisrael, Reb Chanina ben Shadyan was one of them. Together with Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Chutzpah Samatorgim, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, Rabbi Lazar, and others that we read about on Tisha B'Av in the Kinnis, Arzeh Halavon, and Adiri HaTorah, Bali Tresim, Mishnah B'Gemara, and in Kippur Musaf, in the Piyut of Eila Esker. Rome systematically eliminated and destroyed the leaders of the Jewish people who would hold up the Jewish spirit and the Jewish faith and Yiddishkeit. Reb Chanina ben Shadyan obviously is fighting this. And that's why he's not learning on his own. That he can do. But he's makil kehilas barabim. He wants to make sure that he's preserving Yiddishkeit. Did he really feel he's not going to Elam Haba? A Pasha to Yidgate in Elam Haba. He says, Ma'ani l'chai Elam Haba.
He wasn't over on the smart to my left second.
Well, obviously, the Shmarta by L'nafshi Seichem was in a regular time. In a time of Gzeres HaMalchus, he felt. The Gemara says, even Arkas of the Masana, they want you to change the shoelace. There's an Indian of Mesidus Nefesh. He felt that he is for the single individuals who's going to hold up the whole Torah. They want to destroy everything. Obviously, that's why he did it. He wasn't trying to be over on this. Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma argued with him. So there was an argument here. When Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma says, you're going to be killed for this. So all he can ask is, a life dedicated to Torah, a life dedicated to mitzvahs, a life dedicated to preserving and spreading and teaching Torah. As one of the greatest Tanoim of his time, Reb Chanina ben Shadyan, this is not enough. Not only that, being killed al Kiddush Hashem for Kedushas Hashem for Torah, he still doesn't know Mani l'chayim. What's pshat? Now comes the second question. V'gam, Masho Rabbi Yossi. So what's Rabbi Yossi's response? He say, Avada. What's the shaila? No, he's not so. A good shaila? I don't know. Chanina, it's a good shaila. How are we going to figure this out? Klub Maisa Baliyotcha. Tell me some Maisa about yourself. Some Maisa. Open your diary. Find a story about yourself. Ma what shulo shalosa. This is going to be with the response of the shaila. If he has a chelik in Elam Haba. What is going to be the proof that he has Elam Haba? Some Maisa. And what's the Maisa? The Maisa is that he gave a few extra shkolim, or agurot, or dalas for tzedakah. The fact that a person is being killed, tortured, al kiddush Hashem, the fact that a person dedicated his whole life to Torah, the fact that a person dedicated his whole life to inspire the world, to light up the world, to lead the Jewish people, no, Mela, we still don't know where you're going. The fact that he died for this, no, I don't know. What happened? Took up a couple of dollars, he had it in a bowl, he gave it to poor people, whatever Sudas Purim was worth. I mean, it wasn't $1.6 billion, I assume. Whatever it was, and he gave it away. Ooh, when he heard this, he melted. Now I want to be you, something very strange, very difficult about the story. The pshat is, now I have to tell you that this explanation is very, it's a heavy explanation. And of course, most people, he's talking about a person like Reb Chanina ben Shadyan, Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma, that for them, das was not just a part of their life, but it was a critical part of their life. Meaning people who, their demands of themselves, the way they challenge themselves to reach the ultimate place of truth in their life, the ultimate place of emes, a place of emesdigkeit, was obviously very rigorous and very real and very authentic. You're talking about G'dolei HaTanoim, who their entire lives were dedicated to the ultimate pursuit of truth in its deepest and rawest and most powerful way. This is only based on that can you understand the story. Shahoyer Reb Chanina ben Chadin mesupik ba'atzmai. Chanina ben Chadin was mesupik about himself. He had doubt about himself. What? Inyan mesiris nafshe b'shvil eisek HaTorah. He knew that he will not give up learning and teaching Torah for nothing. He will sacrifice his soul for it. But he had a doubt about it. What was the doubt? Imhu ba'mitis l'shem shamayim bilvad. If it's really truthful, meaning l'shem shamayim bilvad, it's part of his authentic and deepest relationship with Hashem. What's the question? Af shahoy tzaddik muflik. He was a tzaddik muflik. Tzaddik muflik means not just a righteous person, extreme, excessive. A muflik, a tzaddik muflik means an extraordinary holy person. The loymid lishma be'emes. Chanina ben Chadin wasn't a guy. Wasn't a joker. He wasn't a clown. He wasn't a shpil doing performances, theatricals for publicity, etc. He learned lishma be'emes. He learned Torah be'emes lishma. That's his premise. But nonetheless, and here we discover how deep and profound emes is, and how sometimes a person could look at something at face value, and it seems one way. But for the person who's looking for true pnimius, for true emes, which as we learned, das is pnimius, it's a different picture. It's a different story. And I say this because as we're going to learn his ideas, we have to realize that we're dealing here with really, really true people that we could look at and learn from them when it comes to our own lives, in our little playground or sandbox that we play around life with. But you see from here the contrast of truth to falsehood. The contrast of truth to falsehood is not just truth versus politics or versus shchitut, corruption. Yeah, corruption. Oh, gewaldig. Sharpsies, machshavat havik baruch mitzar for lemaisa. It's alles good. Kannst this, if anybody wants to, this is the Gemara. Oh no, this is. Okay, you should go. Okay, gewaldig. Much in 11, but fine. You should call your Reb Shmuel. In other words, we look at emes. You have a person who says the truth. You have a person who's full of politics and lies and deception and deceit. That's not the distinction we're making here. For this, you don't need so much das. The distinction here is on a much more pnimizdika level, on a much more subtle level.
He's questioning himself.
He's questioning himself. Mesupik ba'atzma. Yeah, it's all about himself. What's the question? He was completely dedicated to Torah. This is a really righteous person. You're not dealing here with a faker, a camouflage person, a con artist. Even a con artist on a subtle level, a con artist. Sometimes you have a person, they're not really, it's not real emes. But here you're talking about a tzaddik there are people. This is going to be a fascinating analysis about people. There's a person, his nature, umizgoy, and his chemistry. His mezag means the chemistry. Umidoisov, and his characteristics. Lahamshich, cheshech, utshukas, kolev, hachachmas. There are people, not many people, but there are people that mitzad their nature and their chemistry, they have an unbelievable cheshech, an unbelievable desire for wisdom. Their curiosity and their inquisitives to know. They just want to know chachmas. They want to know the wisdom. They want to know how the world works. What's behind everything. And there are people, their whole life, their thought, their heart, their mind is davuk. It cleaves to this. This is where they live. Best proof is there were philosophers from many ancient nations. meaning umas who lived long ago. Shahayu sarim g'daylim. Some of these philosophers, you had them among the Greeks, and some among the Romans, and other empires, were sarim g'daylim. They were princesses. They were men of aristocracy, men of royalty. Lo yechselam kol madanei olam. They lacked nothing of the delicacies of the world. All the opportunities that were available in terms of material pleasures were available to them. Hayu oizvim kol tanugim. You had them also in different religions. What would they call them? The Nazirim in Hebrew they call them. Not Nazirim by us. There's a word for it. Monks, they would segregate themselves. Ascetics. Monks, ascetics. Are you always with people? Are you always voluntarily? They did this. Nobody forced them. Are you always kol tanugim? They abandoned all material pleasures, living a life of hedonism. And they dedicated their life, and they immersed themselves with their entire hearts and souls, and the tshuka, the yearning of their souls, to learn chachmas. Whether it was sciences, whether it was philosophy, whether it was different branches of wisdom that exist in the world, this is what they did. Kol hayoim v'halayla, day and night, ein machshavte pnuyim. They would not, their mind wasn't interested in anything else. They wanted to understand more and go deeper. V'terav l'nafshi, this wasn't torture. V'se'arev l'nafshi, this was the sweetest thing for the soul. V'sisanig b'hem. And the soul had so much tainuk, so much pleasure. Like other people, when it comes to material pleasures, they couldn't even understand their language. For some people, having materialistic pleasures was the peak of life. And for these people, the material pleasures didn't speak much to them. They were such, he calls them philosophim. Philosophy, I think in Latin or Greek, is the love of wisdom, right? Philo means love. Philo means love. And Safi, philosophy is the love. That's the word philosophim. It doesn't stop use this word. The word philosophy, philosophers, are those who love seichel, they love wisdom. Now we're talking about real philosophers. In other words, this was their passion, this was their life. They weren't interested in anything else. Food didn't speak to them, physical relationships didn't speak to them, mansions didn't speak to them, watching human torture and gladiators and animal fighting and power and these types of things that speak to so many people, it just did not speak to them. All they were interested in is wisdom, chachmas. They wanted to know. They dedicated their life to astronomy, to geology, to physics, to science, to biology, to mathematics, to algebra, spiritual ideas, philosophical ideas, theological ideas. Some of them tried all of them, but you see it. The Rambam in Meir Nevuchim describes, the Rambam had some teachers who were Muslim teachers. They were Muslim teachers where he lived in Spain. He describes, yeah, their dedication to Chachma. Some of them were unbelievable poets, brilliant people in the mathematics and engineering and architecture or abstract Chachmas, etc. You had some of the great Greek philosophers. There was Aristotle. There was Socrates. There was Socrates had a student. Plato had a student. Aristotle and Socrates, as he will describe in a moment, had to die for his ideas in the Greek Empire. V'oid, v'oid, v'oid. This had nothing to do with faith, with Amunah. Some of them were Gentiles who actually were Ovdei Kechavim. They were idol worshippers. They were pagans. Shein lem shum hechrich ve'emunah sheyigrem lehem sibas asakim b'chachmeiseim b'tchuna b'tishboides u'filosofia chachmas hachitzoinim tainug nifla. Ki mitzad mezek tiva ma'oi tachliach b'cheshek nifla shenoila b'teva kazah. There was nothing in terms of emunah, of conviction, of faith, that this is the right way to live. Making a choice that this is how you should live. This is the purpose of your creation. This is the most meaningful thing for your creation. They didn't have that type of hechrich, that type of push, that type of emunah. To dedicate their life, he brings an example of tchuna, which is astronomy. That was huge. Tishboides, which deals with... Tishboides is trigonometry and algebra, mathematics, engineering. Philosophy is philosophy. So you have here three different types of chachmas. One deals with the whole chacham of astronomy, how the solar system and the universe works, in terms of all of the planets, including our planet. Then there is the chacham of mathematics, And then you have philosophy, which is trying to understand the purpose of the world and where the world came from and how it came and why it came, and that, which he calls chachmas hachitzaynim. All of the external chachmas in the world, they just had a tremendous tainug. It's pashat their nature. Their nature was machnis. The person was born like this. Nothing to do with a munna, nothing to do with something pushing it. This is what I'm interested in. There are such types of people.
More fine types of people.
Yeah. You're real intellectuals. It's hard to find them today. The moment you have the iPhones, it's already just real intellectual. They're not interested.
Central Park Guru.
Real Bali Seichel. This is their life. This is their passion. This is what they're interested in. This is what they really, really search for. They can go on a mountain and dedicate their life to this, or sit in these types of places with people similar minded. This was their entire passion. Now, most people go, oh, who cares about philosophy? Who cares about astronomy? Get me the next iPhone. Just make sure the sushi doesn't have, spicy mayo on it. Fine. But he says you have to recognize there are people really, really by l'seich. I mean, you have sometimes today, you'll find scientists or physicists, they could sit in a lab for 50 years.
There are many. We don't know about them because they're not on.
Exactly. They're not on Facebook. They're not on Instagram. They're not on the websites, and there's no plaques about them. Chacham Balayir, Tzaddik Balayir, Makubal Balayir, Zayay Masa Hashem Nagilu V'Nismcha. They're not on the signs. They're not interested in those signs. They don't need those signs, right? You have such people. There's people, they sit in labs and science labs for 40, 50 years till 2 in the morning trying to figure out stuff. Once in a while, you hear somebody won a Nobel Prize after 60 years of research. But when he went in, he didn't know he's going to win a Nobel Prize. Most of them don't win Nobel Prizes. So you have this musig, a person who's really, and it's not for parnasa, it's not for fame. It's almost the person, this is who I am. This is my nature. As he says, I was born this way. Nothing to do with a munna, nothing to do with a conviction, this is my passion. This is where I am. Some people, when it comes to sports, right, athletics, this is their passion. This is who they are. Comes musicians. You'll take away a piano from Mozart. You'll take away a quill from Shakespeare. You'll take away a pigment from Rembrandt. This is who they were. This was their passion. Some kids, the music is their world. It's like geniuses, prodigies in their particular field. And it's Yom V'Layla. They could do this 20 hours a day. They don't have to eat. They don't have to sleep. They don't have to drink. You have such people. The Baal Tanya is describing here prodigies when it comes to Chachmas. This is, or maybe not prodigies necessarily. Maybe not prodigies. Maybe they're not geniuses, but this is their whole passion. V'yesh mehem. But now let's talk about other people. Yesh mehem noilad b'mezag acher. There are others who are born with a different chemistry. Shelo yisava v'yachshik l'chachmas. Person who's not very into, he doesn't crave sciences. Afki yavinam. He may understand them. It's not like he doesn't understand. Today they call them ADDs, ADHDs. ADHDs, attention deficit, hey donuts. He doesn't have the tainuk to think about even rega achas, even 1 minute. I can understand it. It's not like you have a person who doesn't understand. He would like to, he can't. He understands it. All he wants is, he wants to binge with his heart. Uninhibited heart. Just do whatever he could every day, moral, immoral. This is what his soul looks for. He just wants pleasure, more pleasure, more pleasure. The more pleasure he can have, the more excited he goes, and he runs from one pleasure to another pleasure. He's not interested in anything else. The reason is often mitzad hamorus. Mitzad hamorus, morus is the gull. Yesh a goyver by mara halavena. You have somebody what they call a mara lavena, a weiße gull, a white gull. She'ein biyecholte l'tzamtzem. Now he's going to describe a few individuals sitting in this room. She'ein biyecholte l'tzamtzem achshavte bedover echad. He poshet can't. He would like to. He poshet can't focus his thought on one thing. It's impossible.
What did you say?
Very good. Very good. You want to know what I said? I just said, hey donuts, right? Yeah. He just can't focus. He can't tune in to much of the. His mind just has to race from one thing to another thing, from one interest to another interest. What's Tati?
depending on when you're born in the year in the Mazolas.
Mistama, everything has to do, you know.
As the sun.
Astrologers.
Don't you think
Not
people are a
Chassidus.
mixture of these things? Not
Avada. In order to bring out the point, he's speaking in extremes. He doesn't mean that there's people are mixtures. Avada. He just wants to bring out the two characters. But in every person, you can have times, you have moments, days. You know, if you had your coffee in the morning, if you took your vitamins, etc.
What does it mean, Mora, Gal?
The
Gallbladder.
gallbladder.
It's scientifically proven like that? That's...
The stuff's just fragging the scientists. But the Rambam and many Svarim, it was accepted that the gallbladder has a tremendous hashpah on the different characteristics and dispositions of the person.
Chemical imbalance.
Yeah. What we call today different chemical compositions and balances or imbalances. So the two, there was known Mara Levena, Mara Shcheira, Mara Aduma, Mara Yeruka.
Isn't that bitterness? Isn't it
Mara Shcheira means literally black. Mara Levena means white. Mara Aduma is red, and Mara Yeruka is like yellow or green, greenish yellow. And this was two different natures of people. So today you'll say he's a Mara Shcheirnik, yeah? Mara Shcheirnik means a black bladder. That's what it means. Most people don't know that, but it represents something. It's more we're going to describe more introspective, more serious, more introverted.
Does it mean depressed?
It could be depressed. It's that natiyah. He gravitates more towards a life of isolation, seriousness, earnestness, which can lead, of course, to more sadness, more depression. Mara Levina is the exact opposite. It's a party animal. Loves people. He's going to describe. It's two different natures. It's nobody's fault. It's not a judgment. It's really different natures. So you have here a person. He can't focus. He can't restrict. Huh?
Inquisitive people are...
We'll see. Again, it doesn't mean a person sometimes is, the mind is, he pushes that verständnis, the seichel is challenged. No, he's a sichli. He's very smart. This guy who can't focus, he's very smart. But he has no tainug in hamoka, in staying the course, staying with it. He's just not there. He loses interest like this. And I should add, this Baal Tanya couldn't write because this was Tovkov Samach Tes, 1809, that modern technology exasperates this. It brings it out in the most extreme and radical way. Amal, all of life, wherever you were. There was nothing else. If you had a chasana, you were a chasana. If you're sitting with somebody, and there was not even travel techniques. If you wanted to travel one place, you had to have a horse or a buggy or a camel or a donkey, and you had to travel. This is before there were even trains. Obviously, before there were cars. Obviously, before there were planes. You had horses, you had your feet, and you had a ship, and you had a boat. So you have to understand that it was very common that a person grew up in a shtetl with his father and his Zayda and his Elta Zayda and his Elta Zayda, and he remained in that shtetl for 80 years or 70 years or 60 years or 40 years, whatever he lived, and he never left it. Maybe he went to the next shtetl for a Kabbalah's panim for somebody, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to understand that, so this is a nature, it doesn't have to do, you could be in one shtetl and not be mitzamtzit. But I'm just saying you have to understand that today's life brings out this in the most incredible way, right? You're sitting at a shir, yeah? You could be emailing, as some of you are doing. You could be texting, right? As some of you are doing. You could, in other words, you're running a business while you're here, yeah? I went to prison, to Otisville, to visit Rabashkin right before he came out. So there was a Yid there, not in the prison, but in the camp. And he tells me, by the way, you should check out my website. He runs a whole website. I say, from where do you run it? He says, we have a computer room. A whole very successful website. It comes into the sun. So wherever a person is, you could be in one place and you have a shaykhus with the whole world. So I'm just saying it brings out this nakuda. But by nature, these people, he says, they can be mitzamtzim, not because they're not sichlim. They would be able to. They understand deep and well. Ain't like tainug. I have no interest. You know, he's in yeshiva. You had chavedim in yeshiva, right? Some people who just sit for years and years. They steig away. They sit at every shir. They come. They don't stop. They chazed. They're always pointing, right? When the teacher said the pointing, they always point. And then there's people, Kenner Zitzen. So there used to be one remedy for everybody. It was one remedy, but can't push an sitzen. The guy can't. And it's important to recognize that it has to do, it's not a choice always. It's not, I chose to be that boy. It doesn't speak to me. This is for me torture. You want me to focus? It's torturous. This person is a very different type of nature. So he says,
Does this explain certain people who are very intelligent and cannot hold on to a job?
Yeah. Yeah, they can't hold on to a job, they can't concentrate, it's very hard for them to have a consistent conversation. V'chuli, v'chuli. Yeah. Now they have the opposite. So he says, this is Mara Levena. Mara Levena is a white Mara. And this person, he just can't be in one place. He's all over the place. Now you have the opposite. A person that the Mara Shchayra, the black bladder, prevails in nature. His soul yearns for wisdom, for Chachma, more and more. Kolch and Fakert, he could put his mind into a topic and stay there. He doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to leave. You know, you have people, you give them a book, and they could get into bed, especially in this weather. For 2 weeks, they're under a blanket with a book. They don't want it. You give them another 1,000 pages, and they want the book to continue. You give another person, you give him a book, yeah? He goes crazy. He goes crazy. You have somebody, they just throw, they love it. Okay. It's not necessarily always chachma, it could be some entertainment, but the point is, it's different natures. Kol chafatzela yeshvuba. Nothing comes close to it. All this is explained. The Rambam has a sefer known as the 8 chapters of the Rambam, which was his introduction to Pirkei Avos. And in the 8th chapter, the Rambam explains this. He says, look there. But Mela, because you have this in the whole world, you have Mara Shchayra, Mara Levena. What's the difference of Mara Shchayra, Mara Levena? Mara Shchayra loves wisdom and loves being focused on one thing and loves separating and being isolated. And Mara Levena Fakert. So it's 2 different types of nature. And in simple English, the Mara Levena is a party animal. He's a social creature. There are people. There's a bar mitzvah tonight, awesome. There's a chasana tonight. They love meeting people. They go to shul, they meet people, they socialize, they make friends with everybody. On the plane, everybody becomes their best friend. Every flight attendant, the pilot, the captain, the person sitting near them. You ever see? Yeah, you have some of those people, they walk down the aisles. Hi, how are you? Where were you born? Yeah. And others are like, oh, imagine you had to do it, you would kill yourself first. To have to go down the plane. How are you? What's bringing you here? Really? Wow! I have a cousin there that's so nice, and they're unbelievable. It's amazing. Like there's no social awkwardness. At least not begully. They just so comfortable, and they love people, and they go from person to person. And they can do it for hours. And other people, they go to a chasana, they meet 3 people, they come home with a migraine headache, and they retreat right back into their isolation for 3 weeks, and next day in therapy. They're analyzing their emotions when they saw this one, and they had an emotion, and it brought back their emotion. And this, just keep me in my own bedroom, and let me be there, la'olam vad, and I'll be a very, very happy person. And once in a while, I'll come out of my hiding place and meet you for 6.5 minutes and do well. It's really just a Mara Levena and a Mara Shchayra. Completely different natures. And therefore also by the Jewish people, you'll find these different types of people. The only difference is, since as Ayid. So his whole life they taught him Gemara, 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 but the nature is Mara Shchayra. Because he's in the Yiddish culture, so naturally it's not going stam to Chachmas, it's focused on what they value in the Jewish world. What they value in the Jewish world is Torah Shabbat Peh. So here you have a person, he's really a Mara Shchayra. He's pushed by nature, he's a bookworm. He's not social. He's not so into people. He's very into amassing and acquiring knowledge. He likes to remain in one place, focus on one thing, and learn and learn and learn what we call steiging. So by the Greeks, they didn't call it steiging. Yeah. But else they call it steiging. He says, and it's gewaldig because it's Torah. But the nekuda is The nekuda is you're just an antisocial. You're not a social guy. Yeah. What?
Distraction.
It's a drug.
Not necessarily distraction. This is just the nature. It's not a distraction. Huh? Not drug. You don't have to call it a drug. You have to call it a drug.
Some people it's like that.
Not. It could be some people. He's not talking about escaping. We're not talking about this is this nature. So that's Akshatam Shechnav Shaladovid Anog B'Yisrael. Was 40 bei Yidden? What's the practice? Come on, Yachshek Nafshe V'Liba Lahagois Bo Yoim V'Layla Lo Yishbois. He's a person who sits day and night and will not stop learning. But the Balatanya says anybody who looks at it will say that Tzaddik Hador, unbelievable. But you have to ask a question. This is the question Chanina ben Tradian asked himself. And this is where Das comes in. And that is, am I really different than the other boy who can't sit still for 5 minutes? I'm just following my disposition and he's following his disposition. Why am I put on a golden platter? I'm celebrated as the greatest of the great, like creme de la creme. I get the best shidduchim. With a house, 2 houses. Right? Because I'm considered the embodiment of the Jewish people. And this guy is Shagitz, the party animal. Yeah, we're not going to talk about where he was Thursday night for the past 10 years, and Wednesday night, and Tuesday night. Whenever the Rosh Hashiva needed terrorism to be done, he was the guy. I mean, I don't mean terrorism. I mean, the... Huh? The Macher. He was the Macher. He was the Macher. What's the difference? The answer is, well, what do you mean? What's the difference? Day and night, I sit and learn. Well, Tanya says, 1 second. This person didn't move his needle a little bit, and you also didn't move your needle. A mazel. He had a mazel. Hoidul Hashem kitayv. You were born with the right nature that in Jewish culture works perfectly. And that is learning. It happens to be that our system is one that values learning tremendously, more than any other culture in the world.
He learns for others as well.
Huh?
He learns for others.
Okay, 1 second. We'll get to that in a moment. Now you have to know the tainug of teaching. What do you think? Suddenly when it comes to teaching, there's no tainug anymore.
Present company.
Always. But this is a moed dekavart. You understand what I'm saying? It happens to be that by us, learning is valued above everything else. And in fact, you have no other culture that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is a mitzvah in and of itself, not even for practical reasons. It's not like science and physics. You ultimately want to find out the truth of something. Here, learning itself, well, you want to find out the truth of Torah, but you can learn about something that's b'chalal, it's never, as the Gemara says, lo hoya v'lo yiyeh. You learn Masechta Yavamas. You learn about Heichitimtzes. If you ever learn Masechta Yavamas, ask a learned the relatives Heichitimtzes. That what? But you want to know what would the Torah say in such a situation? And that itself is a mitzvah. So the fact is, this person non-stop learning, non-stop yoyim and v'layla. The other person doesn't. He's a Mara Levena. He looks for every chasana. He looks for every action. Wherever there's action, he's there. But sof kol sof, the vart is, I didn't challenge my nature even a bit. And he didn't challenge his nature even a bit. We're basically the same people. It's just nesmazel mazoli. And this works for me. I'm a bookworm. I love books. I love svarim. I love to read. I'm interested. I don't have any other yetz. Das is my yetzahara. I'm mazel. My yetzahara is a good thing. So it's not a yetzahara really. He's not criticizing this. He's not saying a person who's a Marash Chayra should. But it's this is where das comes in.
What will happen if he works on himself?
Huh?
No, I'm talking about
What should he work?
So this is Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was challenging Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian. This is the conversation happening. It's a very deep conversation. Not stam telling him you're not getting olam haba. You give a couple of dollars. It's a conversation. If you have to know what olam haba means, that also has to be explained. We teach olam haba always. It's schar, brownie points. You do this, so when you're a child, I'll give you a Lego game or a puzzle. When you're 10 years old, I'll give you ice cream, double, triple scoop with black sprinkles, all of this. When you're 15, I'll buy you a gadget. When you're 20, 25, I'm not going to describe. Right? When you're 35, 40, whatever the thing is. And when you're more spiritual, you'll understand Olam Haba. When you understand Olam Haba, is also there's a damkus to Olam Haba. It's not just a schai. You did this, you get this. Elamai, it's not brownies or cotton candy or a Lego or money or a new car or a new watch or a new phone or a new computer or a new house or a mansion or a yacht or a private jet. But it's the ultimate yacht. It's the ultimate private jet. So then there's no shailamani l'chai Olam Haba. You have a checklist. If Ibn Zaden had a checklist, the best checklist in the world. If Olam Haba is a checklist, boom, 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 Torah, what else do you want? The best checklist goes straight to Olam Haba. Then there's no shailamani l'chai Olam Haba. And then you give a couple of dollars for purim, so suddenly you're getting Olam Haba when you have a new checklist. So the Havana is going to explain the Hemshech Olam Haba. You have to understand also what Olam Haba is. What Olam Haba means. When we touch Olam Haba, it's not just a location. You're going to be in Six Flags L'Olam Vod. For the Mara Levena, that's what it is. Roller coasters non-stop, 24 hours a day, and each day roller coasters get updated. For the Mara Shchayra, yeah, there was a Yid, a fine Yid, his name was Ebelio Kvint. He wrote a sefer on the Rambam. So he was a Litvish Yid, a big Talmud Chacham.
The secretary, right?
And he was a secretary by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I think the bookkeeper, right? Yeah. He was a Litvish Yid, he would come in every day. And to 7-7, he worked for the Rebbe as an accountant, a bookkeeper. He was one of his secretaries. So he wrote a sefer on the Rambam. And Rabbi Elio Quint. So in his Akdama, he writes, he was a Talmud Chacham, was very into learning. So he writes in the Akdama that he imagines what type of Olam Haba he wants. Okay? Works for this weather. So, what type of Olam Haba? We have to climb in Nigloich. So he says that Rabbi Yochevin says he wants, this is what Olam Haba. All he wants is he should be given a room, okay, outside with windows. Outside should be a snow, okay. But a real snow, as like completely bedecked and freezing. Freezing, yeah. Inside the room, a stender, a Vilna Shas, a Gemara, a thermos for a hot cup of tea. This is Olam Haba. Good.
A piece of cheesecake.
He doesn't say that. No, he wasn't in Olam Haba.
That's Olam Haba.
He wasn't in
I
Olam
heard
Haba.
it.
Okay. He describes. They say the Baal Shem Tov once said that there's an Olam Haba of the Balagola. What's Olam Haba of Balagola? Balagola is always on the road, yeah? A coachman. He's always on the road. Balagola. What's his Olam Haba? His Olam Haba is 2 horses, gesund and stark, a wagon that's sturdy and firm with good wheels, and it's on a paved road, which I understand in Ukraine, even today you can't find a paved road. Certainly not in the 1700s when the Baal Shem Tov lived in Mezhebush. Even in Mezhebush today you're not going to find an easily paved road. And it should go, and he says, and he shouldn't see an end. The road shouldn't have an end. It should be so smooth and so straight. What's a taxi driver's Olam Haba? No traffic. From Monsey to Borough Park, it says 36 miles. It should take 36 minutes. From Monsey to Borough Park, 36 minutes. No traffic, no lights. Like a guy told me why he joined Hatzol, he should be able to take red lights. You understand? Every person, Olam Haba, is a reflection of what Shleimus is. So you have to understand when you say the real Olam, what is this Olam Haba? But Mela, as we can understand this, we can start understanding Reb Chanina ben Tradian's perspective and what he was struggling with, which all has to do with Das. Okay, as we will continue, Be'ezer Hashem. The next year will be Tuesday. I'm away Sunday in Los Angeles.
All this is why more Shkoyer in this, that term in this context. It's not how we use it normally.
No, it's the same thing. You'll soon see. He's gonna discuss it.
Yeah, but what kind of a work can a Mura Levina do? This is what he likes. You should start hating to learn. You should start hating to learn. This is what he likes.
Who? Mordechai? We're not he's not
No, I'm
criticizing.
saying, but what kind of
His
a work
nature.
can he do to...
He's going to discuss.
So all this comes
But
from
what if
Das.
that? What if
This, the more das, the more a person doesn't take anything at face value only. You don't only see things bechitzonius, you see the pnimius of it.
It comes from the middle of Das.
Koyach of das.
So what if one's parents, one like this and one like that? You have both natures inside of him?
Very good.
A person can have a combination of
You
both.
can have a combination. Yeah.
So at different times, one could be ruling over the other. That's what I feel about something.
Faster.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.